In this video we will work on Flux CD notification. So in our previous videos we saw, like, when we were setting up Flux, it has installed this set of controllers. So one of them was notification controller also. So this notification controller provides this functionality of like notifying to different channels, GitHub, Teams and Slack and so on. So let's say in our case, if we provide as a provider to this notification controller that send notification to GitHub, then it is going to send that, right? So I'll show you its documentation. So here we have this list of controllers, and one of them is notification controller, which can send to these set of channels. And if we see the Flux documentation, here we have our source of truth Git repository. We need to tell Flux CD that this will be the provider for events. Let's say when we commit changes in this repository, that serves as a provider, you can say event provider for Flux notification controller, right? So we need to tell that this is a provider, and we need to set up alert also, that if something changes in the provider, we want we want to get an alert in our source of truth repository. So where do we get that status? That is sent to the commit which we make over here. Now this alert in turn monitors the customization controller in Flux CD, because in our previous videos we saw that this is the controller which is going to monitor Git repository kind object, which will pull the changes. This Git repository will pull the changes from our Git, and customization controller applies to our Kubernetes cluster, right? So since this is the candidate which keep on changing the cluster, and this is a candidate which decides the final state of the cluster, then this alert object is going to monitor this, and if this fails, then it will send failure notification to our GitHub, and if it success, then it will send the same to our GitHub account. So here if you see now, these two, provider and alert, are communicating back to our source of truth repository. So they need an authorization, or you can say authentication. They need privileges on GitHub repository. So for that we need to provide a secret to that. So here if you see, secret has been created with the name GitHub, and token as this is a PAT token which we need to pass, and so the PAT token which you create in your GitHub account, so let's say this is my PAT, and you need to give as of now I gave all the privileges, but you need to give minimum privileges, like since this is going to, this notification controller is going to write back to the GitHub, right? So it at least needs read and write access to our GitHub. So please make sure that you give that minimum permission to your PAT account. Okay, so once we have these secrets in our Kubernetes environment, then Flux controller will use this secret to communicate back to our GitHub repository. So first thing is we need this secret, and the second thing is we need to tell notification controller that this will be provider for the events. Okay, example here it is referring to notification controller in the Flux CD toolkit, which of v1 beta 2 version, right? And it is saying provider will be this GitHub URL. Okay, and it is referring to this secret, right? And we have this alert now. So we told, you know, notification controller this will be the provider of the events, and we need to define the alert also. So here if we see alert, kind object of alert, and it is referring to the provider name Flux system, which is given over here. That means it will be referring to this GitHub repository, and it is now will be notifying events with the severity level of info. So event sources for this alert will be customization, kind customization, which is in this Flux system namespace, which is given in this example. So here this alert, for this alert the source is this customization. That is what is mentioned here. So three things we need to do. One is we need to have we need to create a sealed secret with by passing pat. And last video we saw how to create sealed secrets, right? So I highly recommend you to watch the previous video and create a sealed secret at your end, because I will not be doing this because I have already created this, but I'll show you the sealed secret which I created. So once we have sealed secret in our Kubernetes environment, we need to set the provider and alert. Now let us go ahead and set up that. So I have also updated the documentation. So here if you see, in last video we were discussing related to creating sealed secret, right? Here I added one more step, to encode your sealed secret with base 64 using this command. Okay, because if you miss this -n, then it is adding some extra spaces to your secret. Okay, but then if you do not use, then create a sealed secret, then that secret will be considered as invalid. Okay, so for creating sealed secret, I recommend you to follow these steps, like step 1 and step 2. Okay, following this one, how do you do it? You create a secret file. We saw this in our last video. We create a secret file, and then for creating this base 64 secret, please use this command. And once you have this secret file, we run this command to create sealed secret. So for our notification controller, I have this sealed secrets directory created here, and this is my sealed secret, which has my GitHub pat token. Okay, that means this part is done. Now I need to define the provider and alert. So what I'll do is I'll copy this code here. I'll tell Flux underscore provider dot YAML. Okay, so here we'll give Flux GitHub provider as a name. So in our case, namespace is Flux CD tutorial, which we are using from our beginning, and I'll give my GitHub link here. I'll pass on my GitHub address here. Okay, so now our provider is ready. So here it is saying look for notification controller in the Flux CD, and it is saying v1 beta 2. So let us check whether we have beta 2 version of Flux in our environment or not. So last time when we did the setup of our environment, so we have this source of truth, right? So if we go here in the notification controller, okay, here if you see it is v1 beta 1, it's not the v1 beta 2. So this means in our environment we have notification controller of v1 beta 1 version. Okay, so we have this provider ready. And next is alert. So how the end goal looks like, I'll maybe give you that idea, because I was testing that. So let's say once you deploy your code to your environment, Kubernetes environment, then you should know the status of that deployment, right? So that is where this notification controller help us. So if you see, we were doing this deployments, but we do not know whether this got succeeded or failed, right? So how do we come to know here? So before like making this video, I was testing. So if you see here, we are getting this notification here saying that all checks passed and one successful. So this our customization controller has successfully applied our changes. So this way we'll get the notifications once we complete this setup. So here it is alerting us the status of our deployment. Okay, so now we need to set the alert flux underscore alert dot YAML. Okay, here I change again v1 beta 1 version. I'll say flux alert. Okay, namespace is the namespace, our namespace. So for alert, the provider is, this is the provider, this is the provider for our alert, right? Now event sources, it will be the customization, and our customization name is this one. And where do we have our customization deployed? It is in Flux CD tutorial, right? Now if I check my kubectl get alert, I don't have anything. kubectl get provider, I don't have anything. So I am in Flux CD tutorial namespace. So in Flux CD tutorial namespace we don't have alert and we don't have provider. So that means we did not do the setup of this notification part. So we do not have this complete part, right? So we have this because our codes are getting pulled and they are getting applied, right? So continuous deployment is happening, we just need this part. Okay, so now what we do is, since we have added provider, so let me verify again. So the name is this, and the namespace, and GitHub sealed secret is our sealed secret name is also GitHub. We have the token here, right? This is our right repository. This looks good. And alert provider is correct, customization all looks good now. So before I check in, I'll show you, like I was testing this and I got this, and for this demo I removed all these settings which I did earlier. And if you see here, for this commit I don't have any commit status here, right? It is because we don't have notification running in our FluxCD setup. So controller is there, but using that controller we did not do any. We removed the notification, we removed the alert, so that's why I don't have status over here. But now if I say commit added flux notification alert again, I'll push the changes. Okay, you can also track what this notification controller is doing. Since we did the setup of these alerts, now this notification controller also sends us logs. Like you can try it using you can get the logs of that notification controller to know what it is doing. Okay, I will not run this, but maybe we'll check kubectl get customization, we'll check whether it has pulled our latest commit or not. So we'll go to commits and I'll refresh. You see, this is a commit ID, and our customization has pulled the latest commit from our GitHub, right? And it has, like, if you see here, it has pulled that. And if you see here, kubectl get alert, we got the alert. Initially we were getting nothing, right? kubectl get provider. Now this customization has applied changes which we did to our Kubernetes environment, and since this alert was monitoring to this customization, so now this alert has sent back the alert status to our GitHub Git repository. So if you see here, I'll refresh the screen, you see we got the notification that the reconciliation succeeded perfectly, right? So it has reconciled and has also applied the changes. So we got the final status because in the customization I added this wait is equal to true property, which waits until this customization completes all its deployments, all its whatever it has to deploy to environment. We will not get final status until it completes the job. So that's where we can say that it has reconciled and also applied our changes successfully, and we also saw alert and providers in our namespace. Right, so this marks the end of this video. In this video we saw how notification controller works. It can send to multiple channels, but I made it here. Right, so in next video we'll explore more about FluxCD. So until then, thank you for your time. See you in next video.